Hello, I'm Sam from Jessup Says. The focus of my channel is to share and educate on how to buy less, buy better. It's not necessarily about buying less things, it's about buying something that fits its purpose perfectly and serves you for as long as possible. By this stage of the journey, you should now be fully clothed and finally ready to discuss footwear. It's about time. For many people, myself included, footwear tends to be the first thing that inspires us to consider looking into a buy less, buy better lifestyle. This proves to me the importance of this category because among all of the elements we wear, a large portion of people out there appreciate and understand that finding quality footwear is important to our well-being and comfort. Having the right shoe for whatever you're doing is essential. Yes, you can go to the gym in a leather Oxford or climb a mountain in a loafer, but we can all agree that these are not the ideal ways to approach these activities. And finding something that is a quality that fulfills that purpose can be genuinely a pain. Here in Australia, if you're not looking at R.M. Williams, there is almost no other brand that offers welted shoes. What we do have access to is some of the most anti-buy less, buy better products in existence. The local brands offer cemented shoes that cannot be resoled, with leather that's closer, in my opinion, to painted cardboard than it is leather, and designs and lasts that are genuinely dreadful. These brands tend to do things like have elongated lasts, fake welts, and really heavy patinas to try and disguise the fact that they're just manufactured landfill after about 6 months or a year of wear. The saddest part is that they're not even affordable. A pair of these will set you back over 250 Australian dollars at base price, or around about 185 USD. Certainly not cheap. It is this challenge to find anything that lasts more than a year that originally drove me to start investigating footwear. Eventually stumbling into Goodyear welted footwear, and the rest is literally being written right now. Literally. And although yes, I've spent more than $250 on my shoes, I genuinely don't think that I'm ever going to need to buy another shoe in my life. Or maybe one or two. I mean, leave the door open. Like outerwear, footwear is another place that you can spend a lot of money. And like outerwear, there is a point where you're spending a little bit too much for what you're actually getting. But there's also a point where you're spending too much for literal garbage. It's that sort of middle step that, at least here in Australia, there are very few options. Though I am aware of a brand that is attempting to change that, so let's hope that that works out. Let's first just find what my style is and the categories of footwear that we are going to discuss today. My style, as usual, boils down to simplicity and comfort. And I want things that can work for me in the most possible combinations of styles, but also in the most combinations of weather. I'm not too precious about my things. Like if it's raining outside, I'm happy in leather soles or rubber soles. But what I do is that I make sure that when I'm home and when I'm in the dry, I let those shoes dry out properly before I wear them again. So if you can't do that because you have a smaller collection of shoes, then consider using more rubber soles in your collection than leather soles. I've also thought really hard about boiling down and simplifying my needs into as small a collection as possible, and thinking about my use case and utility of each shoe or boot that I own and how much I'd use that versus other shoes or other boots that I own to come up with some favorites. In terms of my style specifically, I tend to wear a loafer most days. They are genuinely my go-to. If I need something more casual, it's going to be a sneaker. For more formal, it's probably going to be a suede Oxford. If it's cold outside or if I feel like a boot, then obviously I've got some boots. And all of these tend to be paired with things like jeans, chinos, rugby, knitwear, outerwear, and everything else that we've discussed in the previous videos in this series. I also have a fancy Oxford for if the need arises, and a tuxedo slipper for those very odd occasions. And finally, I have a gym shoe and a walking shoe, all of which we will cover today in this video. But before we get into that, I actually had an idea of some capsules that I thought would be kind of interesting and helpful regarding the footwear that I wanted to share quickly. I started off with what shoe would I choose if I had a 1 shoe collection up to a 3 shoe collection, and seeing which would be the most versatile and suitable shoe for a 1, 2, and 3 shoe collection. Which would be a good way to approach it if you don't own any high quality shoes or you're looking to get into it. And then if you were interested in any of the other 7 or so shoes that we're going to be discussing today, you could look and pick up one of those to add to this 3 shoe collection. But starting off with a 1 shoe collection, I think my 1 shoe collection would either be a black loafer or a black Chelsea boot. Depending on the climate that you're in, you can decide which is going to be best for you. I don't actually own either, but I believe that as far as boots or shoes go, these two might be the single most versatile things that you can own. The color black may be a little hard to wear casually, but people do it all the time, so don't worry about it. And if you only have one, then these would be it. I'd make sure that the boot or the loafer had a nice quality sole, like a rubber or an oak bark tan, so that they lasted a long time and I could wear them in every situation that may arise. If I was to add a second shoe, then it would be the one that you don't already own, but probably in a dark brown suede. So either a loafer or a Chelsea that's already incredibly versatile, but this time in a dark brown suede. It's sort of close to black in terms of its formality, but it's a little bit more interesting and more subtle. A Chelsea in suede is also a great boot for those rainy days too, and a great quality suede is going to be perfect for repelling water. The third shoe that I'd add would be a sneaker, because a quality leather sneaker can be worn to pretty much all occasions, and definitely a modern office if it's worn right, as well as on the weekends to wander around the city. They can be extremely comfortable and extremely fun to wear and pair, and they're definitely a third pickup for me. So let's get into some specifics about which ones I would actually choose. Let's start off with what I suggest to be the most versatile piece of footwear, a black leather Chelsea boot. It's a boot that I actually don't personally own, but I do have a nice dark chocolate brown Chelsea from R.M. Williams that we've talked about a few times. The reason that I believe this to be the most versatile, or one of the most versatile shoes out there, is because of the different ways that you can wear a Chelsea boot and the ways that they are socially acceptable in modern society. I've genuinely seen them worn with everything from short shorts right through to a full suit, and I've never really thought, oh, that's a bad look. There's something endearing about a Chelsea boot. It has such a varied history, from being worn in an equestrian context to rock and roll things in between. The right Chelsea boot has a huge range of contexts that it's able to be worn in and that it's appropriate to be worn in. Another great thing about something like an RM, which is a hole cut Chelsea boot, is that it can be worn really easily with a pair of suit trousers, and it can look a little bit like a hole cut shoe, which is probably one of the most formal shoes that you can buy. It's for this reason that it is going to slide in and be my top pick for the one shoe that you should probably have in your collection as the most versatile piece of footwear that you can own. As for the material and the color, well, you want some kind of leather, be it kangaroo, kudu, cowhide, cordovan, it's really up to you. If you're not going to go for the black, then I definitely go for a shade of dark brown, because that's sort of even more versatile than black. It really depends on your personal style. If you want something a little bit more rugged, then we know you should go for something with a more round last, and if you want something a bit more sleek, then you want to go for something a bit more almond last. I'd also suggest looking at rubber soles, as they can add a lot of wear resistance to a shoe that's undoubtedly going to be very high wear. And they tend to last a little bit longer than leather soles do, so definitely worth investigating. As for the boot that I would choose, well, I actually have an entire video outlining all of the different alternatives to the R.M. Williams Chelsea, so that's definitely worth a look if you're interested in a Chelsea boot, but you don't want to spend the money. If you do want to spend the money and you're interested in a couple of different reviews of my pair of R.M. Williams, then I've done 2 reviews over the last 2 years, and that may be of interest to you to see whether they are the right boots for you. The R.M. Williams boot may not be the best value or the best quality, but they are the most accessible and most familiar brand to most of us, especially locally. So if you're an Australian or you have access to R.M. Williams, then I would definitely say that they are worth going and trying on to see if they're comfortable for your feet. My second or first equal pick for most versatile shoe, and it's probably my most versatile and my most worn shoes over the last year or so, and that is of course my dark brown suede loafer. The reason I love this shoe is because of its casual elegance and versatility. And of course, being a loafer, it's basically just a slipper that you can wear outdoors. You can wear loafers with jeans, chinos, shorts, and even wool trousers. They are one of the shoes that you can truly go from beach to boardroom with, because of, once again, their history in the context of being worn by style icons like Steve McQueen and James Bond. The most important attribute of a loafer is actually that it is comfortable. Now this might seem pretty obvious, but if you put on a loafer and, well, I mean, accounting for some break-in period, if they don't feel like slippers, then you've probably got the wrong pair. Typically, a quality suede loafer is going to be unlined or partially unlined, which makes it very lightweight, very flexible, and of course, very comfortable. Personally, I'd go for something like a very slim leather sole, because again, typically leather is more flexible than rubber is, so that's going to add some comfort. But if you're going to be wearing these a lot in the wet, then there are those very slim rubber soles that exist out there that I've heard can be quite comfortable, so they may be worth a look. As for brands, there are many brands that make great loafers and great suede loafers. From my favorites like Meermin, Carmina, Crockett & Jones, Alden, they all have different styles and price points, but they all offer high quality craftsmanship and materials, obviously at different tiers. My choice of dark brown suede loafer is of course the irreplaceable, the iconic Alden LHS loafer, which at the moment are actually my go-to shoes, even if my feet are covered in blisters, which is saying a lot. Now onto a sneaker. As we know by now, we are talking about a high quality white sneaker or an off-white sneaker, which is a must-have for a modern wardrobe. It's a shoe that can elevate any casual outfit and add a bit of freshness and simplicity to the look. There are a huge range of shapes and styles when it comes to sneakers and white ones, but for this context, you want to look for something that resembles a traditional tennis sneaker. Basically, you want a common project lookalike or a common project clone, maybe with a few changes, but that's the general style that you're looking for. To make sure that your sneaker lasts as long as possible, you want to make sure that you're looking for quality materials on the inside as well as the outside, especially in places like the counter, which is where your heel sits, as this is a typically very high wear spot. My pair of Koyos that I had for many years still look pretty fantastic externally. The sole has a little bit of wear on it and it could be probably replaced, but maybe not by a local cobbler. But the inside of the shoe actually needs to be pretty much completely relined, especially in that counter section, which is definitely not something that I would trust my local cobbler to do. This means that my pair of Koyos, I'd have to ship them something like Beddoes Leatherworks and they'd need to be done properly, which I might do, but it isn't cheap. So when you're looking for a quality sneaker, look for something like a quality leather, maybe suede, and maybe check channels like Rose Anvil to see if he's cut a pair of them in half so that you can really see what's on the inside and make sure it's going to last a long time. A quick mention on color, they should obviously be white or off-white, maybe a gum sole or a white sole, as I think this is probably the most versatile combination and make them the most easy to wear. Now, most watching are probably aware of the infamous Crown Northampton hand stitch that I own, and whilst they are very high quality sneakers, probably some of the highest quality around, the ones that I would actually buy and wear if it were part of my limited collection would be the ones from Koyo. They're just much more comfortable out of the box, and although my pair eventually wore out, my wife got a new pair of Koyos and they're even more high quality than the original pair that we got all those years ago. So I am confident that the newer pair would probably last at least another 5 years, which for a sneaker is pretty good value. Now onto the next kind of shoe that you'll probably want to own, which is going to be an Oxford. And in my opinion, it should probably be a suede Oxford. The way a suede Oxford stretches the gap between a formal and a casual shoe is much better than say a smooth leather Oxford or even a derby. I use a suede Oxford as my sort of meeting shoes on days where you're doing a lot of meetings or maybe a date night after work. They're a bit different to your Chelsea or your loafer, and maybe they have something like a bit of broguing on them, which makes them a little bit sort of unique in a bit of a showy way, but not too showy. You also want them to be, once again, very comfortable, because these shoes are probably going to be worn with a lot of walking and once again in a range of different weathers, hence the suggestion of suede. Speaking of suede, I know it continues to get a bad rap out there, but I think that suede is probably one of the most resilient and best looking materials that I own, hence I've suggested it twice so far. It just always looks good. It doesn't need a lot of maintenance, it doesn't take on a patina like leather does, and this means that it's going to look roughly the same for a lot longer than smooth leather does, and it tends to look a lot more the same over that time. For one of my pairs of suede Oxfords, I went a nice tobacco color, which is sort of a rusty orangey brown, and I found that that works really well with jeans and flannels from blue and gray variety. A dark brown is definitely going to be more versatile, maybe something like a polo, which is a light brown suede, if you're wanting something a little bit more versatile. Things like broguing and other details are also welcome, as the shoe is meant to be a little bit of fun, so don't feel like you can't do something a little bit more interesting. I'd also recommend, once again, maybe a rubber sole, as these are going to be worn a lot and in a lot of different types of weather. My pair are from Crockett & Jones, but equally I think that Carmina makes some really nice, very businessy, business adjacent shoes, and I think that at the current pricing, Carmina are around $200 or $300 cheaper than Crockett & Jones. So they are genuinely fantastic value at 622 Australian dollars. My pair of tobacco suede Westfields from Crockett & Jones are the pair that I've referenced so far. They're just a really great shoe, very comfortable, easy to wear, and they withstand a lot of different weathers and events and meetings that I tend to go to. The bonuses, I got them from eBay and they were about $350, so definitely a bit of a saving there, highlighting once again the need to keep an eye on things like vintage and secondhand stores. Now we get into some more optional shoes that I want to quickly touch on, the first being a fancy shoe. Now a fancy shoe will depend on your lifestyle and what fancy means to you. It might be that the last shoe that we just covered, the suede Oxford or the black Chelsea boot, is going to be more than enough when it comes to having a fancier shoe in your wardrobe. But in some instances is not, so let's discuss that. The first type of fancy shoe is an occasional shoe like a patent leather tuxedo loafer. I recently acquired one from a local mall brand here, but because I'm only going to wear them a handful of times over my lifetime, I wasn't hugely concerned about the quality of them. You can definitely see that after just one day of wear, they're really not well made, but that's okay because these shoes are really only designed to be worn with a tuxedo and nothing else. So if you're not wearing a tuxedo, don't wear these, and if you don't wear tuxedos, then don't buy these. Pretty simple. The second type of fancy shoe is a smooth Oxford. If you're a lawyer or someone who works in a particularly corporate environment, then you'll probably want this to be much higher on the list, but you will definitely need a quality proper Oxford that can be shined up for those proper board meetings or whatnot. You want the shoe to have a bit of presence and give you presence and confidence. You want them to look perfect poking out a pair of suit trousers, adding just to that overall look of sharpness and cleanness. Again, these are only really ever worn with a suit, strictly speaking, but they are shoes, so you do you. These kinds of Oxfords are a shoe that you can end up spending quite a lot of money on, but you can avoid doing so and get a stunning good quality shoe if you try. In this instance, I'd look at Carmina even over Crockett & Jones, as they provide some more formal and sleek looking lasts, being a more European brand, though they do have a fairly similar offer. You can also look at higher end brands like John Lobb, Edward Green, or even a bespoke maker if you're really going to wear these a lot. Now for the brand that I chose, I might not be wearing mine a lot at the moment, but my Wayman bespoke shoes are absolutely incredible. They're the nicest, most well-made shoe that I own, and they are more shoe than I will likely ever need. They have a sleek heel, an almond toe, and they give an amazing presence with their slightly higher heel that is surprisingly comfortable to stand in, and I don't mind the extra inch that it gives me. Yes, they are super expensive, but I will only ever need this one pair, so one and done. Very happy with that. Finally, we should all own a sports shoe of some description, depending on the type and style of exercise that you do. There isn't much I can say about this category. For me, Nike works best for my feet, and the Metcon are the most consistently good lifting shoes that I've personally found, especially because I can find them in an outlet store at a very significant discount, and I'm happy about that. I don't ever run, so I have genuinely nothing to comment about running shoes. Sorry about that. I do walk sometimes, and as I've mentioned in a recent video, I'm attempting to use my Koyo Retro runners as a quality alternative to something like a New Balance V550 that I've had before. They are fully leather, and I'm hoping that they will last me my daily dog walks for the next 5 or 10 years or so. And there we have it, the end of my first attempt at a Buy Less Buy Better full wardrobe approach. There's a lot of information, and even then, I feel like I've barely even got into the true specifics on any particular topic. I guess that's what future content is for, so keep an eye out. Hopefully you found this series helpful. Let me know if I should provide an update or update a specific part of the video in future, or add something to a video, or do another video on another topic altogether. I'm always keen to hear what people are thinking and what people are looking at, so let me know. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Links are in the description as always. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Cheers.